South African Space Agency says it's found what it calls a high-speed stream from a coronal hole, or what you would really call a solar storm from the sun. As you know, the sun is made up of hydrogen, which fuses into helium on a massive scale, usually through a process of nuclear fusion. From time to time, this results in solar storms. Someone who really understands the process much better than I do is Dr Mpho Tshisaphungo, a space weather practitioner for the South African National Space Agency. Dr Tshisaphungo, good afternoon to you. What is a solar storm? What's happening in the sun during a solar storm?
Good afternoon, Stephen, and good afternoon to the listeners. So what a solar storm is, so what happens on the sun is there are different things that happens on the sun. And the solar storm is, there are many different events which are happening on the sun. So the sun has what we call these active regions. And these active regions, they are caused by these magnetic forces which are on the sun, and we call them sunspots on the sun. So these active regions, sometimes when there's too much energy built up within these active regions, then the explosion happens on the sun. So what happens is when this explosion happens, that's what we call the solar flares or solar storms. These solar storms, sometimes they are accompanied with the X-rays and the solar energetic particles, as well as the coronal mass ejections, like the particles which are coming from the sun. And these are like in the group of solar storms, and they can affect our technological systems as well.
So would I be right to maybe understand it in this way? The sun is a series of nuclear reactions, and the reactions sometimes move in different ways, and that leads to sunspots. Have I got that right?
Yes. The sun is a ball of nuclear gas. So it's very hot, and then there are some regions on the sun which sometimes cause explosion, and then these energies are released and coming towards Earth, and that's what causes the storm here on Earth.
So what impact then does it have? I mean, firstly, we're protected by our atmosphere, right? So we don't come to any harm during this time.
Yes. So the Earth is like a giant magnet. So it has this magnetic field which protects us from a lot of this radiation which is coming from the sun. So what happens on the sun, or these solar energetic particles which are coming from the sun, they mainly affect our technological systems, our satellites, and then our for GNSS navigation, and for satellite communication as well. So what happens is that when they propagate towards the Earth, they can interfere with some of the satellite electronics, and then they can decrease the lifespan of a satellite.
So it would affect, I suppose, navigation, it would affect communications, it might affect maybe satellite TV, for example?
Yes, so what happens is that because for navigation, you are using your device on the ground, and then you depend on the satellite which is up in space. And then up in space, we have this, what we call space weather phenomena, which is caused by these solar storms happening on the sun. So the signal which is coming from the satellite, and then it's coming towards your device which you are using for navigation, if it's a cell phone or any other navigation device that you are using. The signal is passing through the space which is it's not clear. So there can be attenuation of these signals which are coming from space, or they can be satellite the signal delays. So it can cause a lot of errors in your navigation if you are doing your navigation errors, your navigation. So anything which is dependent on the satellite which are up in space and it's receiving signal, so the signal can be disrupted. So including your satellite communication, DSTV, as well as radio communication as well.
How are you able to make these predictions? How do you watch the sun?
We have space weather satellites which are monitoring the sun. So we can look at what is happening on the sun. So here in the South African National Space Agency in Hermanus, we monitor these space weather conditions on a daily basis. So we look at what is happening on the sun because we don't expect anything to happen if the sun is very quiet. But now, because we are entering into the sun has this about 11-year solar cycle. Sometimes the sun will be very quiet, and then sometimes the sun becomes very active. So now the sun is picking up and it's becoming more active. So we have these active regions on the sun, which are a lot on the sun. So we monitor this activity on the sun by looking at the images of the sun and see what is happening on the sun. And then we can give some probability of some of the active regions, how to flare, when they are going to flare probability, depending on how complex they are when we are using these images of the sun.
It's absolutely amazing. Dr. Mpho Tshisaphungo, thank you. I really do appreciate the time, ma'am. A space weather practitioner for the South African National Space Agency.